content featured in the following broadcast is purely for educational information purposes. It is based on real-life experiences and POV. Do not contact anyone featured or referred to in this video.
And please do your own research.
In this video, we're going to be looking at this guy, Michael Rubin, and why he stepped into Diddy's shoes hosting an annual all-white party in the Hamptons with a who's who of red flag celebrities. Because I want to know, why has he paid all these people who are being called out for their questionable activity to be at his party as his guests? And so when I looked into him, there were ties to nearly everything I've made videos about. He's a tech entrepreneur who's used AI and merch to get huge investments from venture capitalists, and since 2016 has spent $1 billion on marketing. But his products have the worst reputation. And judging by the comments he gets, he doesn't have too many fans. So a lot of people seem to know what he's about, even if his guests don't. And it might just seem like a bunch of random celebrities being paid to or contracted to hang out. But I think it's worth looking into, and I think it goes a bit deeper than that. So let's take a look at what he used to look like.
Michael, for people who aren't familiar with you, let's talk about how you first started out. You created a company that you sold to eBay for $2.4 billion. What was that company?
I did. I started GSI Commerce in 1999. It was really the largest provider of e-commerce and digital marketing services to big retailers, companies like GNC, Ralph Lauren, Toys R Us, Dick's Sporting Goods. And we ran most, if not all, aspects of their e-commerce businesses. And we started the business in 1999, and eBay bought it in 2011, as you said, for $2.4 billion.
So we already looked at eBay in a previous video and the mess that is going on over there. And as for Toys R Us, well, they were ran into the ground financially. So already there's a couple of red flags. And so the first thing I want to address is that this guy presents himself as this self-made man who just happens to be a sporting fan that's doing everything for the love of sport, and nothing could be further from the truth, in my opinion. If anything, he's contributing to the destruction of sports. And the other thing I want to address is that there's constantly a myth portrayed in the media that if you work hard, you will be successful and make money. But if we look at this article from the Philadelphia City Life from 2018, he was not even good at that, and he was born into wealth. So first of all, skiing is a rich people's hobby because it's pretty expensive, so there's that. I mean, it's an interesting choice of vocation at 12 years old, and he magically made $10,000. Does that sound plausible to you? And according to this article, he was completely funded by his parents, and he already owed $200K at age 16, which somehow he hired a lawyer and it all got sorted out. Wonderful. Then when his parents refused to lend him any more money, he borrowed it from a neighbour, $17K. I mean, who does that? But then I found another article with a completely different story, so who knows? Anyway, he's apparently wheeling and dealing with his giant 1980s brick phone, or was it 1990s? I can't remember. And then it looks like he was introduced to the world of venture capitalists. And he does a deal with SoftBank, who was mentioned in my Scentbird video by Eric Kim. And here's another shocker. The deal was allegedly brokered by Rupert Murdoch. Cash. And so the picture I'm getting is a lifestyle built on debt with some pretty big players. And it turns out he likes a bit of reality TV on the side, which is always the sign of a bit of a faker.
Stay with us to see what happens when this CEO, for the very first time on the history of Undercover Boss, gets fired. Michael Rubin is the founder and CEO of GSI Commerce. GSI Commerce is an e-commerce business which handles merchandising and shipping to other large companies and organizations like the NFL and MLB. GSI creates the websites for the products, and they then store and ship the product directly to the customers. And this means that most online shoppers have used GSI systems to get their products. Mike loved business since he was a little boy, and when he was 8 years old, he sold stationery door to door, and by the time he was 14, he opened his own ski shop, and by the time he was 21, he had a business making $100 million.
I noticed how they left the $600K debt out of it.
Being the CEO of a fast-running company, Mike is always working, and he mostly never has time to spend with his wife and daughter. He's an obsessed man, always trying to reach the next big goal.
In the article, it said Rubin attracted a workforce of young tech-savvy employees who were willing to work hard for relatively little compensation. And that's the thing with these venture-owned businesses. They rely on cheap labour and cut costs when it comes to the needs of the customer. Meanwhile, spending a fortune on the marketing to keep the investments coming in. He promotes himself as a billionaire, clearly to attract anyone else that wants to become a billionaire. And when I looked on Crunchbase, there is very little transparency about his various businesses. So I'm unable to verify his true worth status. But one thing I noticed in the 2018 article is in 2001 the share price dropped from $33 to $3, which is huge. But that doesn't stop them. They restructure the company and create a new marketing pitch and go and get more investment and build more debt that someone else has to pay for. This is how it works. It is like a pyramid scheme. Let me say it one more time for the people at the back. If a company is running at a loss and it has debts, when it's sold, the investors buy the debt. Just recently, he claimed that v-commerce was a new thing when the AI technology has been around since the birth of Snapchat. And it doesn't add any value to the clothing. And correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't v-commerce the same as dropshipping? But maybe his investors don't know about it. And a subdivision of his business, now known as Kinetic, called Fanatics, also known as Football Fanatics, they start selling the idea of the database. And I found one of his investors, Devon Perrett, talking on a podcast which, believe you me, was hard to sit through, about why he invests in Michael Rubin's company.
The one thing we have is probably the largest sports fan database anywhere in the world. We have 81 million fans in our database, 57 million are customers. We have 8 million new customers annually, 40 million annual transactions. When you take that asset and now you think about new categories to go after, there really wasn't too many partners that had an asset that was more important.
So the users of the site have become its biggest asset, whether they like it or not. And the deal they did with the Baseball League and Nike had a terrible backlash. We're going to move to how he, like Adam22, used rappers to completely change his image, and how he became business partners and friends with rapper Meek Mill, business mogul Robert Kraft, Kevin Hart and Jay-Z. So there's this viral video of him making Meek Mill do bunny hops on the tennis court, and now that I've looked into him, it makes a lot more sense.
You got your ass beat. Keep going. Count out loud. Count out loud. Huh? 6, 7, 8, 9, 40, 41, 42. Keep going. Keep going. 7, 8, 9, 1, 2. Keep going. Keep going. Don't cheat on your bunny hops. They suck. Your bunny hops suck.
Now, this is how I remember Meek Mill as a rapper. And then he was with Nicki Minaj. But if we've learned anything in 2024, with all these celebrities, it's just an illusion. That picture, he looks pretty awkward, and it looks like an Illuminati top he's wearing. And I don't know anything about sport, but him, Michael Rubin, and a guy called Robert Kraft, who owns a team called the Patriots, become friends and form a non-profit business together. And he's charged with something pretty sleazy, but then he's friends with Trump and they used undercover CCTV, and so the charges were dropped or something. So now these dudes are trying to convince anyone that's interested that they're part of the hip-hop community, and that out of the goodness of their hearts, they want to reform the justice system. Let's pause for 1 second, because isn't the prison service a corporation dependent on serving its shareholders? Meaning it's dependent on a steady stream of new inmates to keep all those bank loans paid back. So wouldn't that be a good place to start? But no, they want to start a tax-free enterprise and make more money out of it. And already there's a political agenda. And side note, please can you not with the hip-hop lingo? Then I see an article that Priscilla Chan, Mark Zuckerberg's wife, the owner of Facebook, has joined the executive board of directors. No biggie. And let's not forget Kim Kardashian and her short-lived outing as a justice activist. And then it starts to make sense why all these people are at the party.
So it's two different Americas. Yeah. That's not right.
Yeah.
And then seeing these kids getting put in jail and then expecting it. It's like they're expecting to go to jail. That's wrong. Yeah. And then thinking of Meek being in jail. Here's a guy who makes millions of dollars, paying taxes on that, hiring people, and we as a society are paying $50,000 to keep him in jail and have him non-productive. That's nuts.
That's capitalism, baby. Well, the thing is, Robert doesn't expect to go to jail because he knows he's rich enough to get out of it. He was caught on camera visiting the site of a human trafficking ring in Palm Beach, Florida, where he lives. But like I said, the charges were dropped. But he didn't have a problem going there on multiple occasions. So, Reform Alliance turns out to be a lobbying group, and that means they get paid to lobby the government for change. And it's another huge issue in our world and our current society, because politicians are in the pockets of the banks and the corporations, meaning they put their demands over the needs of the people they're supposed to be looking out for. Now, let's just talk about Kevin Hart for a minute.
That's what I'm talking about.
I do not follow celebrity gossip, but I've seen him with my own eyes in Venice Beach, California. He was literally walking around with an entourage who were calling out, "Hey everyone, it's Kevin Hart, come round, come and look." And I thought it was so weird. But as he's now an advocate for parole justice, I thought, let me have a look and see if he's got any cases. And guess what? I did not know how many DUIs he's had. He has tried to suppress information getting into the public domain. And in 2020, the state of Florida had a case against him. And it looks like he's been using his money and his lawyers and the justice system to get off being prosecuted for drunk driving when people have even been killed. So how do these people feel when it's somebody in their family that's died as the result of a drunk driver? So it all seems a bit off and a bit ironic that they're throwing these lavish parties and dinners, raising millions. And yeah, the justice system is clearly corrupt, but throwing more money at it is not going to solve the problem, and people are rightly pointing out the hypocrisy in the comments. But the video is meant to be on Michael Rubin and not just the people he surrounds himself with. And he just looks extremely predatory and greedy, even though it does look like he's lost a little bit of weight lately. And he just can't stop acquiring more companies and accumulating more debt. But when someone else tries to get ahead, he tries to stop them with a lawsuit. And his buddy Meek Mill is on Twitter literally this week begging for a new business partner and saying he can't think of one artist with a big product. I'm surprised Meek Mill hasn't figured it out yet. But speaking of partners, this guy Gordon Storch, he stays well in the background, but he's been a director of Fanatics for years. And speaking of predatory, well, he used, that big event we had in 2020 as an opportunity to move in to acquire more businesses. Quote, "The pandemic has strengthened pre-existing forces and accelerated the pace of change." So he was a director at Toys R Us, who went bust, and remember, their company ran their online operation. He was a partner at McKinsey & Co., who do much the same thing, but he now has his own consultancy, of which he's the CEO, Storch Advisors. So now it's all starting to make sense, because I feel like this whole operation accelerated in 2021. And if you've heard about the amount of billionaires increasing during that period, this is why. Because obviously more people are using online shopping, so they use that as an asset. But overall, product quality has gone way down and the markets are oversaturated. In general, purchasing has slowed down, but these psychos want to try and make out it's boom time.
An expansion into other digital sports verticals, including media, gaming, NFTs, ticketing, and sports betting. Also newsworthy, Fanatics has secured even more funding, and its valuation is up over $5.5 billion in just 5 months. Fanatics now has a private valuation of $18 billion. Joining us now with more on the news, Michael Rubin.
What's particularly interesting is we've created really the best database in all of sports. So we have more than 83 million sports fans that come to Fanatics, that love Fanatics, and we want to give them, really the digital sports fan, anything they want.
I find it really interesting how many people were at the White Party who made money off of crypto scams. And interesting, he's talking about NFT trading when the majority of them have turned out to be worthless. And now he's moving into online gambling and ticketing when artists are struggling to sell tickets. And Drake is known for having a gambling problem, allegedly. Based on what I've seen and what I know, this party was a promotional advert for the business, and these people were chosen for that reason, and they create an illusion of mass wealth. But a lot of people are falling for it.
Mr. Wonderful here. No one needs a watch, but everybody wants one.
Pretty much like everything these guys promote.
A graduation, a marriage, a successful moment in your career. It's like art. Many watches appreciate in value over time, and that's where the problems start. You might think your watch is...
I'm here for the white party. I got a huge dilemma. Obviously, I'm in white, and I got to tell you, I look spectacular. This is ridiculous. All right? So the crash, just so you know, was made by Cartier in the 60s.
Mr. Wonderful Fashion, he wore not just one but two watches, just a few $100K on the wrists.
Tell me you're a con artist without telling me you're a con artist.
Now, the internet has this misconception about people that go to this party. I'm going. What does that tell you guys, bro? Me. All right?
It tells me you've all been caught up in fraud schemes. And you'll do anything for a buck and then cry about it on live stream when it all goes wrong. And there's definitely a lot more men at the party than women. And some of these men do act very fruity. I'm not going to get too into it because that would just be speculation. But going by what we have seen come out about Diddy and the purpose for these white parties, these people have to know what they are part of. And the question I have is, if being that wealthy is that wonderful, why are you caught going to massage parlours at nearly 80 years old? And why do you have to pay models and influencers to be at your party? Why do you need to make money out of putting your kids on TikTok? And why is your mental health so poor? That's what a lot of these people have in common, and they also milk black culture and use reality TV and social media to promote this illusion. Michael Rubin is frequently on CNBC, which is owned by Fox, aka Rupert Murdoch, telling us his worth, which is never questioned by the reporter. And I'll probably get people in the comments saying this is BS. It's just my take after I did my research. And if it gets found out in a few years that Michael Rubin is a fake billionaire, I will not be surprised at all. He just totally has all the traits of many before him, only they got found out.
That's the point, I think, because it was all a fraud. So, I mean, what he lived off was other people's money.
He stole in excess of $5 billion from investors, either for his own personal wealth or to build his empire.
For over 25 years, this man ran a Ponzi scheme, the same kind of scam used by the famous Bernard Madoff.
He has a unique combination of ego, narcissism, and greed that people like him and Madoff and that type of schemer or fraudster typically possess.
So that's all I really have in this video. But if you go and do your own research and you look at any privately owned or privately funded business at the moment, you will see this pattern happening over and over. As I've said, it's just leading to more inequality and worse standard of living overall. So it would be nice to do something about it instead of this continuation of worshipping a fantasy world of wealth when it's really all about creating more debt. Anyhow, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please subscribe and give it a like if you did, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. And one day I might get hold of a better microphone.